This is the map of Virginia, first published in 1612. It is a representation of the Chesapeake Bay and the land of modern-day Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and New York. The map is accredited to John Smith, one of the founders and leaders of the Jamestown settlement. The document holds great historical significance. It was the primary map used for the area for approximately 80 years. It is a symbol of Jamestown, the birthplace of the British Empire, and the beginning of what would become the United States of America. But for this presentation, the most interesting aspect of this map is that it holds an encrypted message pointing to a secret location, the Susquehanna River at the 40th parallel. Steganography is the art of hiding secret information in a public document. The reason it is an effective technique is due to context. The average viewer misses the secret code because they have no context to think one would exist. This makes it very easy to hide subtle clues. Before the map of Virginia is examined, the context to the people behind it must first be established. The surface level history of the map is easy to identify, but it is lesser known that this map connects to an individual and a shadow organization that quite literally laid out the plan for our modern world. In order to see the hidden hand behind the map, we begin with John Smith, the man history says created it. According to Smith's biography, he was born in 1580 to a farming family in a small town in England. He had 3 years of schooling from the ages of 12 to 15. At 16, his father died and Smith left home. He became a mercenary and a pirate. He fought for the Prince of Transylvania, who knighted Smith at the age of 20 due to prowess demonstrated on the battlefield. Shortly afterward, he was captured, sold into slavery, and then escaped bondage via his charms and cunning. His exploits are straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. Smith eventually returned to England and became involved with the Virginia Company of London and their plans to colonize the New World. At the age of 26, Smith was on board a ship which would eventually establish the Jamestown settlement. During the voyage across the sea, Smith found himself in the stockade, sentenced to execution upon arriving in the New World. The Virginia Company of London was a for-profit company connected to some of the biggest names in Great Britain. The Executive Council pre-selected the Jamestown leadership before setting sail. The leaders' names were kept in a sealed envelope and read aloud once land was reached. Smith was on the list, and his life was spared. Let's take pause for a moment. Assuming this account is literal, Smith went from the mental space of waiting for death to then being given new life and placed in a leadership role. This motif may sound familiar. It matches the death rebirth ritual an initiate undergoes when being inducted into a secret society or mystery school. This correlation may make more sense later in the presentation. Smith went on to become a significant figure in the establishment of the New World as both an explorer and author. However, not everyone has bought the Smith narrative. In the same way that William Shakespeare is suspected not to be the actual author of the works attributed to him, people have long suspected the same of Smith. In The Secret Founding of America by Nicholas Hager, it is suggested that the works accredited to John Smith may not have come from Smith's hand. Though purely anecdotal, Hager points out that Smith's lack of education does not match the quality of the written word and the complexity of the ideas presented by Smith. Hager even goes on to suggest that Francis Bacon may have edited or perhaps written Smith's books. Hager only provides a few sentences to this thought and falls short of providing the link between these two men. But there is one, and as far as circumstantial evidence goes, it is rather significant. The Virginia Company of London was a for-profit joint stock corporation. It received its charter to colonize the New World directly from King James. Bacon was one of King James's top advisors and Attorney General of England at the time. The Virginia Company had an executive council which can be thought of like a board of directors, and Francis Bacon sat on the council. He wrote the Virginia Company's charter and presented updates on behalf of the company to Parliament. This gets more interesting when Bacon's other roles are taken into consideration. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. According to the historical record, Jamestown was established in May of 1607 near the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay. Once the settlement stabilized under Smith's leadership, Smith spent a few weeks in the summer of 1608 surveying the bay. In 1609, Smith returned to London to heal from an injury. Smith then used the surveying notes to produce the map of Virginia. The map was first published in 1612, 1 year after the King James Bible was released. At the same time and same location that Bacon was putting the final touches on the Holy Book, Smith is said to have been creating the map. Keep in mind that Smith was an employee of the Virginia Company, though maybe not in the modern sense, but that doesn't change the fact that Bacon was his boss. Now let's look at the quote by Hager regarding the works of uneducated John Smith. Smith had little formal education, yet his works, notably A True Relation and The General History, are written in such excellent economical prose that their perfect style has been compared to the King James Bible. His writings on colonization have been considered superior to Bacon's essay of Plantations. Did he have help writing these works from a secret society of Freemasons? Did Bacon edit his works? The question now becomes, who was Francis Bacon? Bacon is arguably the man most responsible for our modern times. He is credited with developing the precursor to the scientific method, responsible for the transition from Middle to Modern English, the architect of the New World colonization scheme, created the model for modern Freemasonry, holds great influence on the modern legal system, was quite possibly the true author of the works of Shakespeare. And Bacon was the driving force behind the mysterious Rosicrucian order. The topic of Rosicrucianism is a slippery mess, and likely constructed that way on purpose. If the topic of Rosicrucianism is new to you, independent research is recommended. Rosicrucianism is covered across the various Susquehanna Alchemy presentations, but a full picture will not be presented. In fact, it is foolish to think that a full picture of Rosicrucianism is even possible. But with that said, there are enough clues and hints that a working model may be developed. In Francis Bacon, Herald to the New Age, written by Peter Dawkins, president of the Francis Bacon Research Trust, it says that Bacon and Rosicrucianism are synonymous. Their agenda was to bring about a worldwide reformation in consciousness via the arts and sciences in order to create a golden age. Author Manly P. Hall was the 20th century's foremost expert on Rosicrucianism, their techniques, and symbolism. This is what he had to say about Bacon. The tremendous import of the Baconian mystery is daily becoming more apparent. Sir Francis Bacon was a link in that great chain of minds which has perpetuated the secret doctrine of antiquity from its beginning. The secret doctrine is concealed in his cryptic writings. And he said this: Sir Francis Bacon knew the true secret of Masonic origins, and there is reason to suspect that he concealed this knowledge in cipher and cryptogram. Inevitably, different perspectives take the same information about Bacon and reach opposing conclusions to his nature. We are not interested in glamorizing Bacon, nor damning him. The point is simply to show this man's tremendous influence on our modern world. And if there is a secret location embedded in a map associated with this man, and linked to the beginning of his greatest project, the establishment of the New World, then perhaps it should be taken with serious consideration. Now on to the map. In it, north is to the right, as opposed to the top, as modern maps are typically oriented. The primary feature of the map is the Chesapeake Bay. The first indication that there is more to the map than meets the eye is found in the map's top horizontal border. There lists the latitudinal degrees stretching from 37th parallel to the 41st. A latitudinal line is an imaginary east-west line used to map the Earth. Latitudes are also known as parallels. The most famous parallel is the equator, which is 0 degrees latitude. Look closely and notice the number 40 is not only backwards, but mirrored. The 4 points in the wrong direction. The mirrored 40 is significant for 2 reasons. First is it is objective. It is not an interpretation that the 40 is presented in different fashion from the other numbers. Secondly, misnumbering is a precedent used by Bacon in the past. Now, we scour the map looking for something out of the ordinary. We don't know what we're looking for, just that we're looking for something. The most dominant visual on the map is arguably the Susquehanna warrior located in the upper right-hand corner. Beneath the warrior's feet is a cryptic message. The Susquehannocks are a giant-like people, and thus attired. If giant-like is to mean large, then the author is saying that the Susquehanna are large people and thus dressed like large people. Taken literally, the message makes little sense. But this statement does make sense if you're looking for something out of the ordinary. For now, we skip the term giant-like. That is a rabbit hole for a future presentation. The word attire is a double entendre, and we will look at both meanings. The mapmaker places emphasis on the warrior's attire, a cassock, an apron, and collar and jewel. On first glance, this is appropriate garb for a native. But now, compare the image to the famous painting, George Washington Lays the Cornerstone of the U.S. Capitol. Here, Washington is dressed in full Masonic regalia, the key attributes of which are the apron and the collar and jewel. Look at Washington's apron. It is rounded, lacking sharp corners, fringed, and has a fold-over. Now, look at the warrior's apron. It is the same. Secondly, look at the collar, the material that hangs on Washington's neck, and the jewel, that which hangs from the collar. The jewel is an indication of a Mason's status. From the warrior's neck hangs a wolf's head, as described in the accompanying book, The General History of Virginia. The wolf's head is a significant Freemasonic symbol which will be discussed deeper in the Susquehanna Alchemy presentation, The Goddess Susquehanna. For now, simply note the Masonic similarity in attire. Now note the warrior's arm and leg positions and posture. Body language is also an important Freemasonic link. In the statement below the warrior's feet, the word attire has the letter A separated from the rest of the letters, placing emphasis on the syllable tired. Tyre, spelled with a Y, was a key city of the Phoenician Empire, which was the home of two characters central in the Freemasonic origin myth, Hiram Abiff and King Hiram. With the correct lens, the nature of the Susquehanna warrior comes into focus. The warrior is associated with Freemasonry, or Bacon's secret society. The warrior is part of the map's code, but its meaning is still occulted. Within the secret teachings of all ages, Hall describes different cipher techniques used by the Rosicrucians. He says that in pictorial cryptographs, which the warrior appears to be, the key to deciphering the meaning is sometimes held in the hand of the figure. So look at the warrior's hands. In the left hand is a club, and it sits in the shadows. In the foreground is the bow, making it the more obvious choice. The bow string is actually the focal point of the drawing, as it creates the line for the orientation of the warrior's posture. This can be concluded as the line perfectly bisects the warrior's right arm at the elbow and is tangent to the warrior's hip. Using Hall's guidelines, think of the string as a pointer. It meets the butt of the bow just above the north branch of the Susquehanna River at its source location. If the bow is the key to the pictorial cryptogram and it points to the source of the river, what could this mean? Let's hold off on that question for now. The word Susquehanna is used 2 times on the map with 2 contexts. Once as a river, though it is called the Susquehanna Flow, and once as the people. One of Bacon's goals was to turn the English language into a great language, ultimately the planetary language, which it has become. English became a poetic language. This means the same word can have multiple meanings. A word with multiple meanings enables double entendre, or communicating 2 ideas with 1 statement. This gives the poet plenty of room for wordplay, but it is also a significant resource to the clever code maker. The double meaning of the word Susquehanna creates the opportunity for double entendre. Now, with all the pieces of evidence taken together, the Masonic attire, the cryptic message, and the warrior's bow pointing to the source of the river, the meaning of the warrior becomes clear. The image of the Susquehanna warrior on the map of Virginia represents a tribe of people for the masses, but for those with eyes to see, the Susquehanna warrior is a double entendre for the Susquehanna River. So what does that mean? The mapmaker was pragmatic. What sort of secret would be hidden in a map but a location? And how would a location be identified in an untamed wilderness lacking towns, borders, and streets? By using permanent markers such as latitude, which can be determined by the stars, and a body of water. The secret location encoded in the 1612 map of Virginia is the physical intersection of the 2 clues on the map, the Susquehanna River and the 40th parallel. Bacon is considered the father of the scientific method, which tells an investigator to form a hypothesis and then test it. Since Bacon seems to be the man behind the map, it seems fitting to follow his advice. So in part 2, the hypothesis that the John Smith map of Virginia points to the Susquehanna River at the 40th parallel is tested by examining the location. And let me state the obvious. These videos wouldn't be made unless the location contained something mind-blowing.